Welcome to the R.M.Williams OUTBACK podcast. I'm Terry Cowley, the Senior Associate Editor of R.M.Williams OUTBACK magazine. Thanks to Elders Insurance for sponsoring this podcast. The Red Centre has a special place in the hearts of Australians. Visitors might scrub the red dirt off the Duco or out of the creases in their boots, but experiences like seeing Uluru at sunrise never leave the soul. Before COVID, the Red Centre was receiving more than 650,000 visitors a year. Numbers halved in the pandemic and are still clawing their way back. Then a crime wave saw shops and cars broken into repeatedly, and the resulting media frenzy saw many travellers change their plans, which got the Outback team thinking. Despite the challenges, we know there are so many amazing things happening in the Red Centre. My colleague Ken Eastwood has written an amazing story for the new issue of the magazine that reminds us of many of them. Hello, Ken.
G'day, Terry.
How are you today?
Oh, look, fantastic. Particularly having been back out to the Red Centre, I just love that part of the country. It's just such a so good for the soul to be out there.
I love it too. You started your story in the crusty, rusted hills and on the flats of Bond Springs Station, 20 kilometres north of Alice Springs, where the mighty Todd River is born. Why'd you start there, Ken?
Yeah, good question. It's when you're dealing with a story like the Red Centre, I think there is so many places you could start, but it was great to focus on somewhere that's almost like a microcosm of so much of the community out there and the history of the place. Bond Springs is now one of the smallest stations. In fact, I think it is perhaps the smallest cattle station out there. It's still 1,500 square kilometres, so it's still a reasonable size. They're running Poll Hereford out there, which is a fairly standard cattle out in that area, although there's increasingly a lot of black cattle as well, and a few Santa Gertrudis, that sort of thing. And it's a property where they've been facing the fire issues that many of the properties out there have faced. They deal with drought, of course. They've got a wonderful mix of feed and good riverine country, and on top of all of that, they've got the history of a station that's been there for over 100 years. Plus, they've got tourism as well. They've got a little place that you can stay out on their property.
Bringing it back to Alice, Ken, how are things there now? What was your experience of it?
Yeah, obviously Alice has copped a bit in the news over the past year. It became was seen to be a very toxic place to be, and many stories of shops being broken into repeatedly. It's interesting to go there now that there are quite a few shutters on some of the shops at night, that sort of thing. And yet, in terms of tourism, most people will say, actually, we need to get over this. It's not a really terrible place to be at all. In fact, they've got nightly patrols now with an Aboriginal group who volunteer, who actually keep going around and sort of trying to keep particularly young kids out of trouble. They found over winter that a lot of the crime dropped right down, and the mayor himself was very keen to see what's going to happen over summer, whether crime will increase again or whether it'll just stay at this much better level.
So from Alice, visitors fan out not just to see the extraordinary natural attractions, but to have a diverse range of other experiences. You went to Oramina Station Homestead.
Yeah. What an amazing place that is. It's a station that actually has this wonderful little Wild West sort of little street scene, which has been used in a few different movies and things. That was used in the movie Sweet Country. It was used also in some video clips. You can go and stay out there in a variety of little huts and things, and you get to explore this cute little town with its Wild West movie set. It's quite fun.
And closer to town, Earth Sanctuary.
Yeah, so this trip in the Red Centre, I really wanted to focus on, I guess, some of the... I've been out in the Red Centre many, many times. I was trying to get to some places that I haven't been to. And Earth Sanctuary has this a really lovely blend of activities out there, including you can, if you're a couple who are into the night sky, you can actually... basically rent an astronomer for the night, and that astronomer will give you a complete couple experience throughout the entire night. And so you'll sleep in swags for a bit of it, and then the astronomer will wake you up at different times and show you different things that are in the sky. Or you can just go and do the 2-hour show, which is basically what I did, and again, just that wonderful night sky that so many people who go out to the desert country sort of go, wow, the stars are amazing, and it's just an opportunity to see that with people who know what they're talking about.
Rent an astronomer, that sounds very cool.
Yeah.
And you got probably the largest art gallery in the world, extending more than 100 kilometres along the Plenty Highway.
Yes, and again, I think this is something that hasn't received a lot of publicity. It's quite extraordinary to be in an art gallery where you drive. You might drive 20 minutes between the artworks, and suddenly there they are. These and they're all done on billboards, so they're a decent size, and all done by artists sort of who are along parts of the country there, and usually, well, most of the artworks are actually about the country itself. So there's a lot of artworks of the landscape or of plants or animals or those sorts of things on there. It's definitely worth seeing, and quite an interesting way to break up a drive out there.
Absolutely. You chose to cover 2 houses in your story, 2 very different houses, the first being Adelaide House.
Yeah, Adelaide House is right in the centre of Alice there, and incredibly set up by John Flynn in 1926, originally as a hospital. Now, John Flynn, of course, went on to help set up what we now know as the Royal Flying Doctor Service. And this particular house, I think one of the things that I found most amazing about it is the ingenuity of this underground air conditioning system developed in 1926. So it's got wind was sort of directed down underneath the house, and they would put up these wet sort of canvas, I guess, screens that the wind would blow through and then generate that cool air back through the house. Now, unfortunately, after a while, they worked out the wet canvas actually was sort of rotting the inside of the house, so they actually stopped using it wet. But still, the ingenuity of creating something like that in 1926, I think, was pretty extraordinary. And then some of the stories that are associated with that early hospital. One of my particular favourites was this, which I think shows the resilience and the toughness of people who live out in that area. It was the story of this police tracker called Toby, and Toby had been attacked by 3 prisoners and basically had his neck chopped. He had his skull completely sort of exposed with his brain hanging out of the front of his head, and he had one of his eyes pretty much gouged out. And being as tough as somebody in the Red Centre is, he basically sort of stuffed his brain back into his head, put his hat over it, and then walked 3 kilometres to the hospital. So he was one of the first people at the at Adelaide House.
And you also covered another house, Purple House, which is providing some important medical treatment.
Purple House, I think, is an extraordinary success story when we talk about dealing with modern Indigenous health. So one of the things that was quickly established, bringing many First Nations people into Alice to give them dialysis, was actually creating multiple layered problems. One is that usually if they're travelling with family, there's not necessarily anywhere for the families to stay, that sort of thing. Plus, they were finding that the rates of recovery, I guess, for these people weren't great, and part of that was because they were missing their home country so much that often they'd miss treatments or that sort of thing. So Purple House developed this model of care where they developed these remote dialysis units actually back on country and allowing people to receive their dialysis treatments, because dialysis treatment is not fun. It's
very time consuming, isn't it?
Exactly. You can be 5 or 6 hours tied up to the machine and having to have that multiple times a week. So to be able to do that back on country, they were finding that it had so many multiple benefits, one of which was they would help educate people in their own communities about, hey, you don't want to go in this direction, you really want to start looking after your diet and those sorts of things. Plus, it solved that problem of having families having to travel into Alice Springs.
Oh, it just makes perfect sense.
Exactly. And then they started looking at the costs, and they're going, actually, this is saving the government money. they can now show that people in the Purple House program have better recovery rates and better treatment rates than white people in Sydney who are on dialysis. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. And on top of that, one of their programs is their bush medicine program. So many of the people wanted to still receive traditional medicine in addition to the dialysis. And so they got some of the oldies who understand which medicine plants to use, that sort of thing, and they're now producing these bush balms, and anyone in the program gets them for free, but they're also available for you and I to buy, and when we purchase them, that helps subsidise the whole program. So it's this wonderful sort of idea of, I guess, Indigenous medicine merging with the best of today's treatments.
Sounds like some great grassroots solutions there, possibly literally.
Yes.
Heading east out of Alice, in a bit of a different direction to some of the things we've talked about, you went to Altunga.
Yeah, so that's, you're right, way out past the East McDonald's. I love the East McDonald's, a little bit quieter than the West McDonald's. You keep going out past the East McDonald's and you get out to Altunga, which was an old gold mining mecca. And in fact, I think in the 1880s, it was, well before Alice Springs was established, it was known as the first gazetted town in the Red Centre. It's a beautiful collection of old buildings there, still some of which have been done up. But importantly, you've got a couple there, Brad and Belinda Seymour. They've actually taken on the pub out there and they've taken on the camping area. And they are an incredible couple who are actually doing it all up. So we're actually going to have a working pub back out at Altunga, and it was great to be out there seeing sort of their vision for the area. I mean, they're living in, Altunga is one of the hottest places in the Northern Territory, and alternatively one of the coldest places in winter, and they're just living out there in this little shack and doing a really good job of doing up the pub and the camping area. Yeah,
I look forward to hearing what comes of that venture. You also went to Harts Range Camp Draft.
Yeah, it was a nice serendipitous thing to just realise that the Harts Range Camp Draft was on when I was there. It's such a beautiful setting, with the red hills around the rodeo arena there, and to see all the ringers, cattlemen and women, just amazing horsemanship in a location like that. I think it's it really is an iconic place to see that sort of high level rodeo riding and camp drafting, and I was pretty blessed to be there at the right time, I think.
So west of Alice, you've got the usual tourist, I can't say usual, there's nothing usual about them really, the tourist favourites of places such as Alice Springs Desert Park, Stanley Chasm, Ellery Creek, Glen Helen Gorge, so many beautiful gorges out that way. But you chose to focus on a different sort of attraction. One of the most significant geological features in Australia, where a 600-metre wide comet hit the Earth 142 million years ago, formerly known as Goss Bluff, now better known by the Aboriginal name of Norala.
Yeah, an extraordinary place. I can't actually believe that I hadn't been there before. It does require a four-wheel drive to get in there, not necessarily high clearance because the road was pretty good, but you do need a four-wheel drive to get in there. And if you can imagine a crater, like the sort of classic crater shape, and inside that, this wonderful mecca of flora and fauna, it looks amazing. And even from a distance, you can see that classic crater shape. And it's interesting that the Indigenous story of, this baby being put in a little wooden carrier, and while the women were dancing, and this is up in the sky country, and then somehow the baby carrier fell to earth, and as it hit the earth, you can sort of imagine that shape of a wooden carrier sort of being pressed into the earth. That's really what it looks like. But sort of the scientific explanation is a comet hitting the earth about 142 million years ago, and this is the impact is what we're seeing today.
I have been there. I'm just casting my mind back to when I was there. It's one of those places that's possibly almost best taken in from an aerial shot. I mean, it's very hard to, when you're in it, to really appreciate the vastness of it, but certainly when I was there was nobody else there. Not a lot of people go there, which is nice.
Exactly right. And there's a couple of little walks, one which will take you up to give you more of that aerial view, which is quite nice. But you're right, there's a lookout a long way before it where you can actually look over towards it, and that gives you a great idea of it as well.
You were also out near Kings Canyon, of course, which is spectacular as well, and you took part in Khaki Aboriginal Cultural Experience.
Yeah, there are so many great Indigenous experiences out in the Red Centre, and I think most people who travel out there, I would imagine, are at least interested in at least some part of that culture, and whether it's looking through the art galleries in Alice Springs, or whether it's doing a tour at Uluru or Katajuta, or this was one that I think probably doesn't quite get the high number of tourists maybe through, but it's fantastic, just a group coming from a very, very small community of just 10 people, and they run this excellent cultural experience where you go through everything from traditional hunting methods and that sort of thing, through to art, through to foods, through to medicines, and after about 2 hours you get a really excellent understanding of, I guess, traditional culture in that area.
And I guess out that way near the canyon, one of the mainstays is Kings Creek Station, and it changed hands a couple of years ago, and some interesting things have been happening there ever since. But I guess one of the constants that anyone who's been to Kings Creek Station will know is, of course, the camels.
Yes. And yes, they've still got their collection of camels when you first drive in there, and including such wonderful beasts as Daisy, who is referred to as by the keepers as the great white shark, because you don't want to turn your back on her or she can have a bit of a chomp. Yeah, and very much still part of that legacy of the Afghan cameleers, who, as we know, did so much in Central Australia in terms of opening it up to, I guess, a modern settlement and that sort of thing. And even now, we know there's up to 4,000 or 5,000 camels still running around Kings Creek Station, and let alone in the whole country, where who knows what the actual number is, but anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million camels running around the country. So to be able to sort of interact with them up close and have a chat to the keepers about camels and their role there, I think that's an important part of Kings Creek Station. Also now they've got such a variety of ways of accommodation out there. I was lucky to stay in their new glamping tents, which called the Drover's Dream, up on a hill overlooking this incredible, sunlit orange range, and nice flash accommodation with your own bathroom and all that sort of stuff. And they do the whole free wine and cheese platter sort of thing very well.
Bit more glamorous than the caravan I stayed in when I went there, Ken. Maybe to finish up, I'd really like to hear about this permanent drone show at Uluru that you went to.
Yes, so this is the latest of the amazing experiences you can have when you go to Uluru. So many people have attended the light show now, which is still running, and you can go and see these amazing sort of display of lights through the country. Plus, many people have had the Sounds of Silence dinner. The latest thing, which is, I think, extraordinary, it's the largest permanent drone show in the world. So there have been larger drone shows, but this is the largest ongoing one. So more than 1,100 drones actually telling the story over Uluru of the Mala story, which is very much associated with that area. And so you can imagine things like, the giant devil dog called Kopani sort of rises above Uluru, and there's 6 lasers as well that are part of this show. And the drones, of course, are lit up in different colours. It's an extraordinary experience, and I think it really adds to our understanding of the culture out there too, because it's telling this ancient story in one of the most modern ways. And I think if I could sum up the Red Centre too, that's almost where we are as we approach the Red Centre now. It is this ancient place with so many great stories and this ancient landscape, and it's finding new ways to tell these stories and new ways to experience it. If you haven't been out there in a while, can I encourage you, get back out to the Red Centre. If it's your first time, head out there. You will not regret it. It is good for the soul.
So I'm assuming, Ken, these drones are controlled by computer. You haven't got a whole lot of tech heads out there doing it. I mean, it sort of boggles your mind, that many drones in the sky at once.
That's right. And the AI...
I was going to ask, is it AI?
Yeah, but I didn't put this in the story, but it's actually, I was chatting to one of the techies, and it's really clever. So if, for example, there's meant to be a line of drones coming up from the ground or something, and let's say one or two of the drones have decided to go on holiday and they're not cooperating.
Go on holiday. Fall from the sky.
Other drones will recognise that there's a gap in the line,
wow.
and the AI sort of brings them into line. So the show goes on regardless of whether, because out of 1,100 drones you might get, say, 5 a night that decide not to cooperate, but all the others know where every other drone is, and they fill in the gaps. It's
smart drones. As you say, if you haven't been out there lately, get out there. This is a bit of a love letter, I think, from Outback to the Red Centre, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, when I look at my own images, let alone other people's amazing images of the Red Centre, and it does engender something in you. Like, I love all of Australia. I know I'm very blessed through my job to be able to go to many, many places with Outback magazine and to see places of Australia that many people don't. But there's something about the Red Centre that I think does engender this love of country and this stillness and majesty. I think in the soul, you're sort of reminded of our place in the universe and how small we really are and how big our landscape is.
I agree. And we can all read all about it in the new issue of Outback. That's issue 152. And you can also see Ken's stunning images of the Red Centre as well. Thanks for talking to me today, Ken.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Terry, anytime.
I'll keep that in mind. And to you, dear listener, thank you too. Thanks for listening, and talk to you again soon.